Now, if you're an online English teacher, chances are you're asking the question, how can I increase my income as an online teacher? Well, today I'm going to show you 3 ways to increase your income as an online teacher. Now, one of the best ways you can increase your income as an online teacher is making sure that you are the best teacher your students and the companies you work for have seen in a very long time. Now, what do I mean by being the best teacher your students and the companies you work for have seen in a very long time? It simply means, first of all, that if you normally spend about an hour preparing for lessons, consider spending an hour and a half or 2 hours for a period of time. If you generally spend about 20 to 30 minutes preparing for job interviews, consider spending 45 minutes to an hour. Make sure you print good-looking props. Make sure you make your background look real nice to impress the interviewer with a very welcoming classroom. Make sure that if your energy levels in a job interview or a lesson is generally right around here, hit it up a notch. Make sure that you impress that interviewer with your energy. For me, this has been a real challenge over the years. I don't really have a naturally smiling face, so I've got to slap myself a few times every single time before an interview. About 2.5 years ago, I remember applying to a school based in Vietnam, and I was preparing for about 45 minutes to an hour to make sure that I give them my absolute best during the interview. And so, stepping into the interview online, obviously, there were 2 people being interviewed for this position, including myself. And so the interviewer started out asking us some basic questions about our qualifications and experience and all the rest. And then eventually we got to the dreaded mock lesson section of every single interview. And I was nominated to go first to present my mock lesson, and I gave it 150% in that interview. Finished it up. After I was done, the other candidate had the opportunity to do their mock lesson. She finished it up, and at the end of the interview, I was quite stunned when the interviewer asked me to stick around afterwards for about 5 minutes as she wanted to talk to me about something. And so she actually ended up offering me a different position with this company, live streaming online lessons to about 700 to 800 kids at a time. And she told me that, listen, they'll pay me 200% of their normal hourly rate to fill this position. Now, I didn't know they were advertising this position. I didn't know they were looking to fill this position, but just the fact that I gave it my all, I was able to increase my income by landing a job I wasn't even applying for. Another story like this happened about 2 years ago when I applied with less than 1 year of teaching experience to a school based in Japan. Their hourly rate was great, very competitive in the industry, and so I decided to apply, went to the interview, got accepted, and started teaching with this company. And so how they worked at the time was they would get business English students in for a 3 to 4 month period, taking them through a course. And so this was my first experience with a business group like this, but I taught them for about 3 or 4 months. At the end of that 4-month period, I was emailed by the owner of this company, the founder of this company, saying that he wanted to set up a meeting with me. I was super nervous, thought I did something wrong, thought I was about to get fired. And so going into that meeting, the owner told me that after we finished with this group of business English students, the feedback they got afterwards, my name kept coming up everywhere. And so I remember when he said that, I remember going back to sort of that mentality in my mind, I'm going to give it 150, 200% in every single lesson. And all of the students that had lessons with me gave me very, very positive reviews. And so this led me to the owner of this company offering me a semi-permanent position with his company, writing curriculum and doing other tasks for an actual fixed monthly income. So once again, just by that mentality of giving it my all, I actually landed yet another job that I never knew was being hired for. Finally, one of the most effective ways in which I've gotten my students not only to like my lessons, but to like me as a teacher and as a person is that every once in a while I give my students something that they didn't expect, but the moment I give it to them, they realize that they really, really needed this. One example of one of these things is a feedback report that I send all of my students after our conversational lessons. This is a detailed feedback report focusing on specific mistakes they made during our lesson. It contains different sections such as vocabulary, some things to take note of, for example, grammar issues. It contains pronunciation issues, and it also contains some exercises for them to do, specifically addressing the issues they had during our lesson. Now, another great way you can increase your income as a freelance online English teacher is the following. I get asked a lot, how do I increase my hourly rate with my freelance students without feeling guilty about it? Well, there are a few things to keep in mind. I would never increase my hourly rate if I haven't taught that specific student for at least a period of 3 to 6 months, because that's generally a good time frame in which you can get them to not only like your lessons, but also to like you. Now, once you're past that period with your existing students, what I normally do is I do a sort of a self-assessment, making sure that my student and I are in a good space in terms of our relationship and the quality of our lessons. If that is in a good space, I initiate my rate increase strategy. Now, there are basically 3 steps in my rate increase strategy for my freelance students. Step number 1 is I initiate some tutor feedback. Earlier I mentioned that I generally send my students feedback reports after each lesson, and so I shift gears a little bit to, instead of me giving them feedback, they give me feedback on my teaching, my tutoring, the materials, the content of our lessons. And so I have a form that I design that I send them, politely requesting some critical feedback about our lessons. Once I get that feedback back, the next step is to make sure that I formulate a plan of action for the way forward based on the student's income. So I would dedicate 10 to 15 minutes in our next lesson to present to them or pitch to them a plan for the next 2 to 3 months. This shows them that I'm actively reconsidering and analyzing the student's progress and the way forward. Now, once I've done the pitch for the way forward, it generally breathes new energy into our lessons and just brings a very new, exciting dynamic into our lessons. That initiates the third and final step of my rate increase strategy, which is to send them a letter requesting a rate increase. And so a couple of things I mentioned in this letter is that I want to thank the student for their support and for trusting me to be their English tutor. What I also do is, if I've completed any certificates or additional qualifications or courses, I mentioned that in my rate request increase letter. And then finally, I pitch them saying, from this date, which I generally time about a month or 2 in advance, your hourly rate for our lessons will go up with, let's say, $1, $2, or $3. I generally don't want to have too much of a significant increase in the hourly rate to scare the student off. And finally, I always write my letter in a way that it sounds like a partnership. I never tell a student I will increase my rate. I normally request a rate increase. The third and final way in which you as an online English teacher can increase your income is creating teaching materials. This is something that I accidentally stumbled upon about 1.5 years or 2 years ago, when in about October or November I saw a slight drop in my bookings at the time compared to the previous months. And so I decided to create some exciting challenge for my students to motivate them to keep booking lessons, and maybe for some to book even more lessons. And so I decided to come up with the 21-day Living Your Life in English challenge, where I invited my students to book 3 lessons per week for the next 3 weeks, where they can engage more in applying English to their everyday lives. I was actually able to increase my bookings with 60% during that 3-week period. And so I earned more money from my students, but not only that, I decided to go one step further and put this program and the material for this program on sale to other teachers. I was able to sell round about 35 to 40 of the copies of this course material to other teachers, once again, generating more revenue and increasing my income as an online teacher. These are 3 simple ways in which you as an online English teacher can increase your income. If If you have some other ideas you'd like to share, feel free to pop them in the comment box. If you've not subscribed yet, please, it would mean so much to me if you hit the subscribe button. And if you liked today's video and you would like to get more content like this, feel free to hit the like button, and I'll see you on the next one.